Most unhealthy relationships don't start toxic. They slowly become emotionally exhausting. And the scary part is, by the time most people realize something is wrong, they're already attached, already confused, and already asking themselves questions they never thought they'd have to ask. Maybe you felt that before. You're with someone you care about, maybe even deeply, but something feels off. You can't always explain it. Nothing looks bad enough from the outside. There's no dramatic movie scene, no obvious ending, just this quiet, growing heaviness. You feel more anxious than safe, more careful than comfortable, more drained than loved. And that's what makes unhealthy relationships so hard to recognize. Sometimes the biggest warning signs are not loud, they're subtle, repetitive, easy to excuse. They show up in your body before they fully make sense in your mind. You start overthinking simple conversations. You rehearse texts before sending them. You feel relieved when they're in a good mood and tense when they're not. And little by little, you stop feeling like yourself. If that sounds familiar, stay with me, because one of these warning signs gets ignored all the time, and it's often the one that does the most damage. The first warning sign is this: you don't feel emotionally safe being honest. Not physically present, not technically together, emotionally safe. That means you should be able to say, "Hey, that hurt me," or "I've been feeling distant," or even "I don't agree with you," without immediately bracing for punishment. But in an unhealthy relationship, honesty starts to feel dangerous. Not because you're trying to start conflict, but because every honest conversation somehow turns into blame, defensiveness, silence, guilt, or emotional withdrawal. So instead of speaking up, you begin editing yourself. You tell yourself it's not worth bringing up. You shrink your feelings to keep the peace. You say it's fine when it isn't. You laugh off things that actually hurt. You convince yourself you're just being too sensitive. And that's where it starts. Not always with yelling, sometimes with self-abandonment. Maybe it looks like this. You tell your partner something they did upset you, and somehow the conversation ends with you apologizing. Or you bring up a boundary, and they act like you're attacking them. Or every time you express a need, they call you dramatic, needy, too emotional, too much. After a while, you stop asking for what you need, not because you don't have needs, but because you've been trained to believe your needs are inconvenient. That's not love. That's emotional instability disguised as connection. In a healthy relationship, honesty might be uncomfortable sometimes, but it doesn't feel unsafe. You don't have to hide your emotions to stay loved. You don't have to betray yourself to keep the relationship together. And if you've ever felt yourself becoming quieter, smaller, more filtered around someone you love, that's something you shouldn't ignore. Now, the second sign is one that many people mistake for just a rough patch, even when it's becoming a pattern. The relationship feels emotionally draining more often than emotionally nourishing. Every relationship has hard seasons. Stress happens, misunderstandings happen, life gets messy. But there's a difference between going through something together and constantly feeling depleted because of the relationship itself. An unhealthy relationship doesn't just hurt during arguments, it leaves you emotionally tired all the time. You're always trying to read the room, always trying to predict their mood, always trying to fix tension that you didn't create alone. You find yourself carrying the emotional weight for both people. And what's dangerous is how normal this can start to feel. You wake up already anxious. A text from them can instantly change your whole mood. A short reply makes your stomach drop. A small disagreement ruins your evening. Time with them feels like emotional work, and time away from them feels like recovery. That's a powerful sign, because love is not supposed to feel like constant emotional survival. Yes, relationships require effort, but effort is not the same as exhaustion. Caring is not the same as carrying everything, and love should not leave you feeling empty every week. A lot of people stay in draining relationships because the good moments still feel good, maybe even really good. And that creates confusion. You think, see, we're okay. We had such a great night. We laughed, we connected. But then the pattern returns, the distance, the tension, the inconsistency, the emotional whiplash. And that roller coaster can become addictive. Because sometimes what people call passion is actually instability. The highs feel high because the lows are so low. The relief feels like love, but relief is not the same thing as peace. That distinction changes everything. And the third warning sign might be the most overlooked of all, especially by people who are loyal, empathetic, and used to seeing the best in others. Problems never really get resolved, they just get repeated. Think about that. In an unhealthy relationship, the same pain keeps showing up in different clothes. You have the same argument with different wording. You bring up the same issue in different ways. You cry about the same wound on different days. There may be apologies, there may be promises, there may even be temporary improvement, but deep down, nothing truly changes. You hear things like, "I'll do better. I didn't mean it like that. Can we just move on? Why are you bringing this up again?" And maybe part of you wants to believe it because starting over emotionally every week is exhausting. So you accept surface-level repair just to stop hurting for a moment. But repeated pain with repeated apologies is still repeated pain. Real repair has evidence, it has consistency, it has effort you can feel, not just words you want to believe. If somebody understands that something hurts you but keeps doing it, the issue is no longer confusion, it's priority. And that truth is hard to sit with when you love someone. Because sometimes the hardest thing to accept is not that a person is evil, but that they're simply not loving you in a healthy way. A lot of viewers know exactly what this feels like. You forgive, you explain, you give another chance, then another, and one day you realize you're not even asking, "Will this get better?" You're asking, "How much more of this can I take?" That question matters. And there's one more sign that quietly breaks people down before they fully notice what's happening. You no longer feel like yourself in the relationship. This is the sign that often hits the deepest. Maybe you used to be light, expressive, calm, affectionate, confident, but now you feel insecure, second-guessing, emotionally reactive, or strangely numb. You don't recognize how much you've changed because the change happened gradually. You adapted, you compensated, you became whoever you needed to become to keep the relationship functioning. Maybe you started apologizing for things that aren't your fault. Maybe you stopped sharing parts of your personality because they always got dismissed. Maybe you became hyper-independent because asking for support felt pointless. Or maybe you became obsessed with proving your worth to someone who should have been able to see it without all that suffering. And that's the part people don't talk about enough. An unhealthy relationship doesn't just affect your heart, it affects your identity. It can make secure people anxious, warm people guarded, open people silent. And over time, you stop asking, "Is this relationship healthy?" and start asking, "What's wrong with me?" Sometimes the answer is, nothing is wrong with you. You've just been living too long in an environment that keeps disconnecting you from your own emotional center. That realization can be painful, but it can also be the beginning of clarity. Because noticing these signs is not about labeling every imperfect relationship as toxic. It's about telling the truth. It's about paying attention to patterns instead of excuses. It's about recognizing when love is asking you to disappear in order to keep it. And love should never cost you that much. A healthy relationship won't make you feel perfect all the time, but it should feel safe enough for honesty, steady enough for trust, soft enough for your nervous system to rest, and mature enough to repair what gets broken. You deserve a relationship where you don't have to decode someone's mood to feel okay, where your feelings are not treated like problems, where communication doesn't feel like a battlefield, where you can still hear your own voice clearly. So if any part of this hit close to home, don't rush to judge yourself. Just be honest with yourself. Sometimes clarity begins the moment you stop minimizing what you feel. And if you want, share in the comments, what warning sign do you think people ignore the most? Or what was the moment you realized something in a relationship wasn't healthy anymore? I think conversations like that help more people than we realize. If this video gave words to something you've been feeling, stay close. There's a lot more here about relationships, self-respect, emotional intelligence, and the kind of healing that brings you back to yourself. And remember this, just because something feels familiar doesn't mean it's healthy. And just because you've tolerated it for a long time doesn't mean you deserve it for a second longer.